Welcome back to Never Done Ask with me, John Martin. We are celebrating 200-ish years of railways in the UK and Railway 200 by counting down 200 railway landmarks. This episode we should hit the halfway mark. We have just seen the opening of the first deep level tube line in the UK, and we have also seen the opening of the iconic Forth Rail Bridge. So where are we going to start? We're going to start with landmark 81. 20th of the 5th, 1892, the last broad gauge service left the Great Western Terminus at London Paddington. The advantages of the larger, smoother, faster trains on the 7'1/4" Brunel gauge lost out to the cheaper and more ubiquitous 4'8.5" standard gauge. 3rd of the 6th, 1893, the Liverpool Overhead Railway, the second electric metro in the world, opened. It ran next to the Mersey, linking the city centre with the docks and provided a quick way for workers to get around above the congestion of the docks. It also provided an umbrella for the dockers. 23rd of the 8th, 1895, the end of the second Race to the North. With the opening of the Forth Bridge, the new target was Aberdeen. At the start of the races, a trip from London took a little under 13 hours, with the overnight service leaving at 8 in the evening and arriving just before 9. The East Coast attempt on the 19th of August saw them approaching the S-curves at Portobello near Edinburgh at over 80 miles an hour, 65 miles an hour over the limits, and still going over 60 while approaching Waverley. The evening of the 22nd saw the record run of Hardwick, a tiny London and North Western locomotive that tackled the fells on the 141 miles between Crewe and Carlisle in just 2 hours and 6 minutes, an average of over 67 miles an hour. As well as risking safety, it was agreed that these advances in speed weren't particularly beneficial for the passengers, as now they were arriving in Aberdeen in the very early hours of the morning when there was nothing open rather than at the polite, respectable breakfast time. 6th of the 4th, 1896, saw the opening of the Snowdon Mountain Railway. This was a rack railway to the top of the highest mountain in England and Wales. 14th of the 12th, 1896, the Glasgow District Subway opened as a cable-hauled circular railway. This is the third oldest underground metro system in the world. The 11th of the 7th, 1898, the opening of the Waterloo and City Line. This was built by the London and South Western Railway, whose terminus at Waterloo was well away from central London, and so provided a passenger link into the city. The 5th of the 8th, 1899, was the formation of the South Eastern and Chatham Railway. Competition between the South Eastern Railway and the London, Chatham and Dover Railway was cutthroat. Whereas most railway companies had their own territory and just competed against each other on the boundaries, these two companies' territories almost completely overlapped, and they also had strong competition for the London, Brighton and South Coast on their west and in South London. The result of the doubling of lines in a region that had limited freight income, the competition was bad for passengers, who also got the raw end of the deal. And with two companies on the verge of bankruptcy, a new company was formed to cut costs and for both to survive. Starting in 1900, the municipal borough of Swindon is created from Swindon New Town and Old Town. The chief assistant to the locomotive superintendent of the Great Western Works, George Jackson Churchwood, became the town's first mayor. Churchwood had been taking on most of the design work while his boss was ill, and became the locomotive superintendent in 1902. Churchwood's designs were influenced by what he saw as best practice from around the world, and he created designs that pushed the Great Western Railway to the forefront of locomotive technology. Even the last of the British steam locomotives of the 1950s were derived from his designs half a century earlier. 26th of February 1900, the City and South London Railway extended northwards, bypassing King William Street, going through Bank, Moorgate and terminating at the Angel. 28th of September 1900, Charles Tyson Yerkes, the American financier, acquires the as yet unbuilt Charing Cross, Euston and Hampstead Railway. and what would become part of the Northern Line. Yerkes would acquire various parts of the yet unbuilt Piccadilly Line and Bakerloo Line, as well as a district railway, which had long been in existence but in dire need of electrification. This collection of companies became the Underground Electric Railways of London, the foundation of the modern London Underground. As was typical of Yerkes, most of the funding was empty promises, and this was discovered after his death, but by then the building was too advanced to stop. 12th of the 2nd, 1903, three Glasgow locomotive builders merged to form the North British Locomotive Company. This grew to be the largest locomotive manufacturer in Europe and the second largest in the world, building thousands of locomotives not just for the UK but countries all around the world. 5th of the 3rd, 1903, the Mersey Railway, which had a long tunnel under the Mersey, converted to 600 volts DC fourth rail electric system, becoming the first railway on the current national network to convert to electric. 5th of the 8th, 1904, the Great Western City class locomotive City of Truro was timed at running 8.8 seconds between two quarter-mile posts as it passed Whiteball Tunnel by journalist Charles Roose Martin on a run between Plymouth and London. Due to trying to preserve their reputation for safety, neither the article from Roose Martin nor the Great Western Company itself advertised the speed, which was above 100 miles an hour, the first by a locomotive. By 1908, Frank Pick was a publicity officer for Underground Electric Railways of London. He was behind possibly the greatest branding exercise of the 20th century, including the iconic Underground Roundel and Johnson typeface. 7th of the 4th, 1909, the first formal service for carrying cars was introduced as the Great Western Railway carried cars through the Severn Tunnel. The 10th of the 1st, 1911, Herbert Nigel Gresley, the carriage and wagon superintendent of the Great Northern Railway, was promoted to succeed Henry A. Ivett as chief mechanical engineer of the railway. He would go on to become the chief mechanical engineer of the London North Eastern Railway, where he was responsible for designing the iconic A4 and A3 Pacific locomotives, along with the elegant V2s and a raft of other classic designs. 4th of the 10th, 1911, the first escalators on the London Underground were installed at Earl's Court Station. In 1912, the first of the Great Western pannier tanks was built as conversions from earlier locomotives. The Great Western's trademark pannier tanks were a way of fitting water tanks around a square-topped firebox and also allowing access to the gubbins between the wheels without having to crawl under the locomotive. The number of pannier tanks made numbered in the thousands. In 1915, the term Metroland was coined. The Metropolitan Railway was in a unique position where it didn't have to give back surplus land it acquired, so it built huge housing developments in what was the countryside, enticing city dwellers with the prospect of a modern house in semi-rural tranquility. It grew, however, into endless rows of semi-detached suburban housing. And number 100, it's a Quince Hill rail crash. 226 people were killed and 246 were injured as a troop train hits a local train and two coal trains on the West Coast Main Line near Gretna Green. This is the worst railway disaster in the UK. We've now reached halfway. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and ring the bell to be notified of more upcoming videos. If there's something that I've missed out, please leave it in the comments. There is so much I could have put in, so much I had to cut out. And I'll be back tomorrow for another on my countdown.